Yeah, maybe he got some bad juju. This is Scott Ott with Stephen Green and Bill Whittle, and we're talking about former CIA Director John Brennan on this episode of Right Angle, brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com, and former CIA Director John Brennan, who's been very harsh during the course of the Trump-Russia collusion investigation, appeared on Morning Joe this week and said that he might have gotten some bad information. Now, besides being one of the most comforting things you want to hear from a guy who was running the CIA, is Stephen Green. I found it fascinating that he said, in addition to saying he might have gotten some bad information and that's why he was so critical, he said, I suspected that there was more there than actually was. If you were hiring for the director of the CIA, and somebody said something like that, would that move them to the top of the pile?
Wow. This is maybe the lamest attempt at spin. I'm going to do a whole segment on the media spin, the whole Democrat media spin in the wake of the Mueller nothing burger. But wow, what a lame, awful way to try and restore your reputation. Because, he was in on this collusion bandwagon for 2 years now. One of the most visible members. He wasn't just on the bandwagon. He had, it's just, you know what? Whenever I hear bandwagon, what I always picture for some reason is the Clampett's car, remember, from Beverly Hillbillies?
Sure.
With that high seating in back so you could get a clear view of everything. He wasn't just
the truck they loaded up when they moved to Beverly?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
I picture Comey not just riding this claptrap thing in the high seat and back so he can see everything and be seen by everybody, but he's actually built one of those lifeguard chairs. So he's really way high up there on this ramshackle bandwagon, and he's got a megaphone, and he's waving a banner that says, Trump colluded with Putin, and he rode this thing for 2 years, right? And now he has the nerve to go on Morning Joe and Mika, which, how low do you have to be to do that to begin with? But after 2 years, to show up on Monday morning on Joe and Mika and go, gosh, I guess those bad guys gave me some bad information. I'm not going to listen to those guys again. You can bet on that for sure.
Well, Bill Whittle, I'm sure you're not going to be as cynical as Stephen Green, especially
considering more cynical than
that Mr. Brennan told host Joe Scarborough, quote, I am relieved that it's been determined that there was not a criminal conspiracy with the Russian government over our election. And this is quite a new take on his part, because in December he was saying that Mr. Trump should prepare for, quote, forthcoming exposure of your malfeasance and corruption. I guess, Bill, the only thing you can think is, wow, that's the kind of integrity we want in a former CIA director, somebody who stands up and admits that he's wrong.
Absolutely right. And one can imagine him first getting these reports as a director of the CIA and saying, I don't know, there's something about this seems a little fishy. If only there was some way we could get information on what the Russians were actually doing.
Perhaps a dossier of some sort.
While Bill Donovan
Maybe,
weeps.
Hold on. I'm just spitballing here. But what if we were to put one of our guys and give him a Russian accent and send him to Russia and have him pretend to be a Russian and see if he could... This is genius. Wow. It must have blown his mind. It's easy to laugh at, and it is. There's an awful lot of that German word I can never pronounce.
Schadenfreude.
Farfig.
God bless you.
But in any event, what it really does, honestly, though, is show you two things that are just really, really alarming. One of them is how weaponized these major elements of the government were. You throw them in with James Comey and Loretta Lynch and Eric Holder, and you've got the top law enforcement officials and intelligence officials in the country as hacks for the Democratic Party, not only shielding the truth, but actively promoting actual lies in order to further their own politics. There's that. But even more disturbing to me than that is to listen to and look at the actions and think about the actions of John Brennan and think about James Comey and realize how pathetic, what poor, unbelievably poor quality people we have had in the most important positions in our government. Just the shocking childishness of Comey when he was right after he got fired, deservedly so, with that smug kind of look on his face. I'm the Boy Scout, and I'm going to. It's not just a question of the failure of the office that's terrifying. It's that the office could have been inhabited by such ridiculous people in the first place, such utterly ridiculous people in the first place. I can think of only a few people in politics who I think are serious, and I would, and one of them is Trey Gowdy. I'd make Trey Gowdy Attorney General. I watched him keep the whole. I watched him keep the entire idea of justice alive during the Obama presidency, especially the second half. But he's not in government anymore, and neither is Chavez, and a bunch of other people who had actual character, and to think that the here's what I'm trying to say. The fact that this kind of political game playing is handled by such low people, it makes you wonder what our defenses really are. If the director of the CIA, which is responsible for intelligence, and the director of the FBI, which is responsible for counterintelligence, are really this stupid and this self-centered and this childish, what exposure does America have in relation to actual enemies with nuclear weapons?
Well, when you see an incident like this, you realize what a primitive age we're in. I mean, after all, the director of the CIA in our day has nothing more than the power of suspicions about things that might or might not be there, and he has access to bad information. And that's kind of where the technology is these days. But someday in the future, a director of the CIA or even a former director of the CIA might be able to suspend judgment until the facts were laid bare before a jury of peers or perhaps even the American people. This individual would be able to carefully analyze those facts, suspending his disbelief and putting aside his bias, and consider competing ideas, mitigating and litigating factors, consider actual evidence, and determining whether that reaches the stage of proof. That kind of a person would maybe not go on a talk show and shoot off at the mouth about whatever the breaking news of the day is, despite the fact that he used to be the director of the CIA. And he would actually hold all that to himself and keep his own counsel until the legal process has had an opportunity to play out. Someday, that is what I dream of for these great United States. Nah. Who am I kidding? This is a great opportunity for Americans to see the humanity of our elected and appointed officials. Because as much as we'd like to think that the guy who's sitting at that big desk at Langley is really nothing but a lawman in the model of movies that we saw in black and white, and that all he cares about is truth and justice, and all he cares about is getting the bad guy and defending the little guy. The reality is he's like the rest of us. He's racked with political motivations. He makes judgments faster than the facts come in, and he's got a platform bigger than most of us to do it, all of which calls for a sense of responsibility and maturity on our part as the consumer of news. We can't hope that somehow the quality of men is going to improve unless the quality of this man improves, unless our ability to be discerning improves. And that's why it's my responsibility to not make snap judgments and let the John Brennans say what they must, but I'm not sucked into believing everything that they say. For Stephen Green and Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com who have a little more discernment than the average bear. We thank you for making this possible.